Howdy, everybody. This is going really well, huh? Welcome. Flesh and Blood gamers. This is a very special night for us at Arcane Games and Events. We have a hunted spoiler card for you tonight, and we will be following it up with a roundtable from a small contingent of the Arcane Games and Events Pro Team, which will hopefully give you a good idea of how this card kind of fits into our meta and the hero that will likely be using it. So before we get into that, because I absolutely love making people wait for spoiler cards, we're going to do a little bit of housekeeping, and we're also going to let people kind of trickle in that want to see this card live. First of all, join our Discord if you haven't already. That is discord.age.events. There you can interact with all of the amazing players that you see on the AGE circuit all year long, as well as a number of other really amazing folks. I know the Pitch It To Me podcast team is with us, and a number of other really, really awesome people from the Flesh and Blood community. Next, in case you haven't heard, or if you are not local to the area, the greater Los Angeles area, specifically Altadena, Palisades, and a number of other areas have been absolutely devastated by a series of wildfires over the last week. I myself have been impacted, and several of our community members have lost homes, and it's been pretty dreadful. If you are in a position where you can offer money, time, etc., please go to socalhelp.age.events. If you are inclined to do so, there's a number of people that would really appreciate it, and we would appreciate it just communally. Next up, we have a stream coming up. It's my stream. It's coming up on January 17th. That's this Friday. I'll be going live at 3 p.m. I'm going to be doing something that's a little bit different, but hopefully still useful. I'm going to be reviewing some of the matches that I casted during the January AGE Open, the first one of 2025. And I will be critiquing myself because this is casting specifically has become something that I want to get really good at and really turn into a craft of mine. I want to do it as one of the best in Flesh and Blood, and I hope you'll be there to join me as I take the next step on that journey. Next up is just generally AGE Pro Team streams are going to be starting up again. We took a bit of a holiday break out of the craziness of Worlds and the holidays in general, but you can see myself, Joshua Rath, Jonah, Overhault, and the other cast of characters that we have on the AGE Pro Team. So look forward to that. We'll be going live each and every week. Next up is, of course, the Arcane Games and Events Open Series, which continues on February 1st, 2025. That one's going to be a hunted draft, which becomes clearer and clearer how that's going to go every single day that we see more of these cards. It's going to be in Top Deck Keep once again. Tickets are on sale now. Buy yours, and we will see you there. Can't wait. Last but not least is a project that we are very excited about and that we have just launched called AGE East. That's right. We're sending the Arcane Games and Events Open Series eastward. We figured one coast was not enough, so we are going to be kicking it off with an inaugural open at Great Stories Comics and Gaming in Whitensville, Massachusetts. That's going to be on February 9th, 2025. This first one is going to be a little bit weird, because we are essentially just mashing ourselves in with their Road to Nationals. So it is going to be a hunted draft. You will purchase tickets directly through Great Stories' website. If you follow the link at the bottom of your screen, east.age.events, you will get there, and you can simply click the button to add the ticket to your cart and check out as you normally would. The only difference between this and any other RTN is that we will be streaming it live. Myself and our other regular casters from Arcane Games and Events will be casting the event remotely. And you will also get AGE points to qualify for your own Eastern Players Championship on top of the normal Road to Nationals prize pool. We are very excited to bring this thing that we love to the East Coast, and we hope you will join us in making it as amazing as it has been here in Southern California. Okay, folks, with that, let's go ahead and not spoil a card yet. First, we're going to move to our AGE Pro Team Roundtable. We're going to introduce each and every one of these players one by one, and then maybe I'll show you a card. We'll see. First up is Evan 040 Bridges, famous for going 040 into Zane Johnson's Azalea as Teklo. Next up, we have who's that Pro Team player? I'm not really sure because he's in silhouette at the moment, but that's Alexander Vore, famous for his wizard play. Additionally, we have a deck tech of his Acilio deck that he took to Worlds and placed very well with up on our YouTube channel. I encourage you to check that out. Next up is Colin the Boy Wonder, Colin Pewter Erickson, famous for his Kasai play, despite whatever the meta has to say about where Kasai stands. And he's really shown what that hero can do. He just took down the inaugural Open of HEE West last Saturday, and he did it very handsomely with only one loss, and it was his first of the day. So add U-Boat Commander onto his list of accolades. Next up, we got Josh Goggles Wrath, hailing from some state that I'm not convinced exists in the greater USA. But he's a valuable member of our team, and we're very glad to have him because he's an excellent partner in testing, specifically in Runeblade, which is something near and dear to my heart. Gentlemen, go ahead and unmute yourselves on Discord. I trust you now that the housekeeping is done. Okay, folks, so the first thing you're going to notice here is that I have a speculative deck up here on February. And the first thing you'll probably notice is that it's not an assassin deck. It's in fact Fang Drakai of Blades, which means that, yeah, cat's out of the bag. Our spoiler card is a warrior card. It is not an assassin card like all of the other ones that have been coming out today. Our producer kind of mixed up the times in terms of when we were supposed to spoil. The email said New Zealand time, and in him being a red-blooded American, thought there is no other time than my time. So we're getting to it a little bit late, which is why it's not coming out with the other warrior cards. But that being said, this is a banger of one, and I think it will be worth the wait. Let's go ahead and take a look at the things that I've thrown into this deck so far. Colin, I'd like you to lead off this discussion because I think what you'll notice, first of all, are things that I'm going to be interested in, right? So I want to hear your thoughts and maybe a couple guesses as to what our card could be. Let me take a look at that. We're muted. Stand by, folks. Boom. Colin, say all of that again.
Alrighty. Okay. So this deck list looks like a whole bunch of really good warrior cards. We've got the new Provoke in there. We've got Blade Flurry. We've got the Blade Runners, Classic, and we've got some really good Draconic cards. We've got Blaze Headlong. We've got Lava Burst. We've got just a bunch of above rate stuff, and we've got seems like a pretty good deck for a Grains of Blood Spill. So awesome stuff altogether. Now, but I have to say, I think my prediction that maybe we'll get some kind of Fang specialization, maybe some kind of finisher, because I would love to see just how far we can push Fang when he has all of his fealty tokens online and all of those free attacks.
Yeah, and I'm curious what you're gonna think, especially with my choice of weapon at the moment. You'll notice that I only have one of Fang's weapons at the moment. The other one is a Quicksilver Dagger. And the main thing I want to point out before we reveal this card is that the Fire Vein requires you to have played a Draconic card this chain link. Not this turn, not this chain link. So I hope I'll be vindicated by my choice of a Quicksilver Dagger in the other slot, just because I figure that giving multiple Fire Veins over several chain links is going to be kind of difficult. Anybody notice anything that is egregiously missing from this list, just based on what we know about Warrior? Colin, I did tell you that there were rainbow Blade Runners. I lied. There's only red and blue.
That's all right. But I mean, this looks pretty good. I noticed that we're a little more warrior heavy in the equipment than draconic, and I like that. Kind of a big warrior guy myself. But I mean, I don't know. It seems like a lot of good stuff here. Only thing missing are like the Kasai specializations. I don't know what those are. But,
It is funny you should mention that, Colin. Let's put a pin in that, shall we? Any other speculation from my fellow members of the AGE Pro team? Alex, I know you're dying to yap right now.
I'm always dying to talk, Bryce. I don't know. I think this is interesting. I mean, you haven't shown us the card, so we're just as anxious as everybody else who's waiting. But I think one thing that's interesting about this deck you put together is that there are a lot of attack actions in here. I think traditionally, when you're playing Warrior, you're really only kind of splashing those attack actions, maybe even in Kasai, where you're like abusing Nourishing because of your, hero attacks allowing you to get that effect multiple times, or maybe like some poppers splashed here and there. But, it would be exciting to see perhaps maybe a little bit more of an aggressive attack action / weapon blend of Warrior. So I'm kind of hoping that what we have here maybe synergizes where, you want to play these attacks, but you also want to leverage your weapons, almost kind of a hybrid that we really haven't seen before in the Warrior class.
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Alex, because so much of the set has still yet to be seen, and obviously we're going to have a lot of answers by the time the world premiere is over and done with. But I do tend to think that maybe there will be more of a blend between reactions and normal attacks. That being said, like this is a bit, if I dare say so myself, this is more of a puzzle than I'm used to Warrior being, especially when it comes down to Kasai. It's like, just give me a go against Source. Let me refresh Dynamos. Let that be it. Because of that stipulation on the weapon, and also a number of other factors based on the other cards that we've seen, like marking, fealty tokens, all that jazz. It does seem more difficult to me to build than most other Warriors. Anybody else? Any other words before we move on to the big moment, boys?
I think my guess is going to be something similar to like a draconic slice and dice. This is a very aggressive deck. You've got like no defense reactions in here, and I know Warriors traditionally, 5% of their deck blocks 3, but I think it's pretty aggressive. You've got the uprisings in there, so I think you're looking to go pretty wide.
I do have this guy in here, I will say. And I did try to leave a lot of the generic stuff out for the time being, just because I wanted us to mainly play with what is going to be the bread and butter of this deck. But this was too tempting to not put in there. Anybody else hyped about this card?
That card is bonkers. I love these types of effects. I said it when I saw Thaw in Uprising originally. Cards that do something, where it's either interacting from your graveyard or doing some kind of effect that's building up, I think is very cool and underexplored.
Yep. All right, folks. Should we show these people the card or what?
Show us the card.
I'm excited.
We want to see.
All right, we'll show you all. First, this is actually a request from Alex Vore. I'm gonna read the the little reminder text, the lore text that's going on next to the picture. I wanted to show you guys immediately. Alex said you got to read this. Okay, this is Typanis, who is the Lord Arbiter justice guy, I guess. Deshvahan, vile den of traitors and usurpers, I sentence you to the flames. Let those who plot against the dragon burn with you, and all who conspire against our dynasty perish in the fires. You shall burn to the ground, a meager pyre for our mighty Emperor. Here it is, boys. This is Fire and Brimstone. It is legendary. However, it is not specifically legendary to Fang. It says, it's red, it costs 2, it is a draconic warrior attack reaction, blocks for 3. This costs 1 less to play for each draconic chain link you control. And daggers you control get +1, and you may attack with them an additional time this turn. Gentlemen.
Cool.
Draconic blood on our hands.
Oh, that's good.
Draconic blood on our hands.
Good.
Yep.
Draconic blood on our hands. So I'm going to leave the card in the top right hand corner here. At any point, if you'd like to read it again, please let me know, and I will. I'll slip back into the slide. But yeah, my first reaction upon seeing this card was that is 4 modes of blood on our hands for probably less hoops to jump through. Am I right, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, 2 Draconic chain links. That's not bad. Attack a couple times. This is awesome, and this is exactly that finisher, that aggressive overlap that you can put together to really send the pain to your opponents. And this is cool. With maybe some stances, I think you're going to be able to send some damage that's far above what the usual warrior hands can do of a bunch of threes. This is multiplicative.
And furthermore, I want to bring up the weapon again. The coolest thing about this card in my mind is that because of the reduction of cost, you can basically attack with any Draconic thing with Go Again, which, of course, because of fealty tokens, you can give other attacks Draconic. And then you can follow up with Obsidian Firevein, which will gain Go Again because you're playing a Draconic card. You can do it on the chain link because it's a reaction. And it'll reduce its cost to 0 if you've had a Draconic attack before it. So all you have to do is 1 Go Again Draconic attack, and then you can use this for its full potential right after that.
Seems really strong. I'm going to be honest. I see why it's legendary, because if you can play 3 copies of this, playing more than one of this on a single turn seems like it would do some game-breaking math.
It very much feels like it's like they read Lumina Ascension. It was like, man, let's make a Draconic Lumina Ascension. And then they printed this, and it's like, okay, we can't let them have 3 copies. This might be a little too much.
Which brings me to the next point. Like, before we went live, Evan was talking about he was really trying to pump me up for information about it. He really wanted to guess it before it happened, which I don't blame him for doing. But one of the questions he asked was, is this a build around? And because it's legendary, I just can't think that it is a build around. Also, you don't really need to. Like, I think by and large, you're going to be just happy to see this card anytime. Evan, go ahead. You were going to say.
I was just going to say, in terms of, so the list you built, you have Obsidian Firevein and Quicksilver Dagger, which definitely work really well with this. But in Limited, you've only got 2 Fireveins, as far as we know so far, and it does give them +1 and an attack in additional time, and when you swing that first Firevein when you play this, then that'll give it Go Again. But I think you are going to need like 2 more sources of Go Again to get max value out of this. So it's definitely tricky to activate, but if you've got a reaction heavy deck, then you could definitely make this work.
Yeah. Oh, imagine in Limited, if like you can get multiple of these in Limited, just playing 3 of these, like just better than a constructed deck, that would be sick.
True, yeah, the limit is removed in Limited, right? So if you open a bunch of these, you can play them. The Go Again is interesting. I do wonder how you will give the daggers the ability to kind of keep swing the 3. I mean, in theory, you play one of these, you can swing 4 dagger attacks, right? Which, if they're free, that's amazing. But you need either the action points or the Go Again to keep going. Which,
and to make them free, then you need 3 fealty tokens, which honestly, so far based on what we've seen, seems actually pretty darn hard to do.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how easy it is for Fang to carry those tokens forward. Because my interpretation seems to be, if you can keep playing Draconic cards, you never really lose them unless you use them. And so it's almost like an incremental resource base you're building up over the course of the game. It'll be even more interesting for CC, I think, because, while in your theoretical deck here, you have a lot of really powerful Draconic attacks, you could just play straight up generic attacks.
You could.
And turn them Draconic, right?
Yeah.
So, you come into questions of, maybe you play like Rabble and you're playing like a more red line deck and you just make the Rabble Draconic, and then now you turn on your Link for your dagger, and then you play this react on the dagger and you do all the shenanigans. But it opens up, I think, a lot of building aspects that decks that require a lot of subtype synergy usually lack, by being able to turn it into, hey, this is the subtype I want it to be, which is powerful.
My immediate thought was to remove Flame Skill Furnace from consideration for a Fang deck. But when you talk about more of a red line list, including Rabbles and all that kind of stuff, especially if we can keep those fealty tokens up, then this might be a real consideration. The interesting thing about Fang, however, is like it's not like Dromai where you have a certain amount of upside to pitching reds. In general, I think you would much rather be pitching blues, even so, because a lot of the time, especially when you're kind of gearing up and getting all those fealty tokens together, you're still going to have to fuel a turn, right? Probably with like a Blade Runner or something like that, giving these daggers go again, besides by playing draconic cards like To Obsidian Firevein, right? So there's still a lot of the set to be seen, but again, a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing is, like, it says, control 2, or you need to have 2 Draconic Chain Links for it to be discounted to 0, but as long as the first weapon you swing is the Fire Vein, then, you only needed 1 attack beforehand, so...
Yeah.
And then, worst case, you lead with the Fire Vein, and, you only have to pay 1 for this, so this only ever really costs 1, so... It does seem pretty solid, as long as you can get the go again.
Yeah, I bet this is one of those cards that comes in EA. Usually, like the legendary specs or things like that, or like some kind of Marvel. Like, can you zoom in on that card? I feel like this is
we're
pretty
looking at.
insane.
Let's take a look at the slide again.
It does.
Right now.
It does look like it's EA almost in the card art, right? So it could be one of those slots, but like, God,
I mean, this is the kind of card you want like a playmat out of. Honestly.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
if you just blow up that whole art, like it's just gonna look awesome.
Art in this set is spectacular, and I think this card in particular. I mean, just look at that. That is amazing.
One of the things that you mentioned, Alex, that I want to harken back to is the fact that you can have multiple of these in a limited deck, and it's actually feasible to do. It's only a rare. It's not even a majestic.
Yeah, so, I mean, think Soul Reaping from Monarch, right? You could have a chain deck with 2, maybe 3 Soul Reapings. You're like, all right, guys, we're gonna have a fun time.
Pretty gross.
Yeah, and they, work really well together if you play them on the same turn because, just stack up.
So I want to talk about a card that I think I'm very excited about potentially coming back into the mix, especially, Alex, if we see more red line builds of Fang and also Syndra. For semi-personal reasons, this was the first Fable I ever pulled, and I've been holding it since then through it being worth like $30 and so forth. And I'm actually kind of starting to feel like there's some use cases for it, especially with the advent of fealty tokens, because fealty tokens describe draconic cards. So we're not just talking about actions. We're talking about anything and everything when you pop a fealty token. And also for Blood of the Drakai, those cards will get the discounted cost from Blood of the Drakai being pitched as well. Anybody else willing to speculate with me on this?
Yeah, I mean, Warrior is the king of 1 cost plus 3 that does a cool thing. And Blood of the Drakai says all those 1 cost cards are 0 cost. And that's pretty big for Warrior. So if you can get your Blade Runner, your Jagged Edge, your whatever the new one is, it says like dagger attack gets +2 and then create a fealty token.
I think that one costs 0 though, unfortunately. But I catch your drift.
Oh, it costs 0? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I have it in here. I don't think it was quite ready yet on February.
That's fair.
Endear Devotion is a 1 for +3 and create a fealty if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links.
There you go.
So works well with that. We haven't actually seen a lot of the 1 cost pumps like that yet, but we definitely have seen a lot of 1 cost finisher attacks that this would really work well with.
I mean, I could,
if you spend the fealty.
I could see this one being huge in Dear Devotion, namely because Fang on his hero text already. It's whenever he hits a marked hero. Excuse me. So yeah, I guess my next question is how much access do we have to marking as Fang? And I think that was the piece that was seeming a little bit more difficult. I believe Long Whisker Loyalty, one of the modes on there can mark people, which I could see, honestly, I could see this card being like the chosen mode being completely different, like the optimal mode being completely different based on where we are specifically in the game. Like early on, I could see marking somebody being really important to generate those fealty tokens and get your engine online.
Public Bounty is really good. It's a generic, so it's going to be good in everyone. But 1 for 3, and it's not a conditional mark. It's just mark them.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's solid.
Absolutely, yeah. Like getting to 3 fealty feels like such a turning point here, because like, I mean, it's 2 resources, right? And every turn is like, I'm pitching an extra blue to do this, but now suddenly, we can play stuff like Hunt's End. We can, and with like Grains of Bloodspill, now instead of I'm taking a turn to pitch an entire blue to play the turn, I'm pitching half a blue to play the turn, keep the other half, and now I'm kind of and save that half a blue card, the 1 or 2 resources for next turn, and you play that turn off the 1 resource. And that I think is a really cool way to use Grains of Bloodspill that we haven't really seen as much of, because like Warrior was always just resource intensive. You got to pay for the swords, you got to pay for the go again. But now here we finally have like a guy who says, I might just need 1 resource. I might just need, just a little bit of pitch, maybe a vigor token, and I can play my entire turn. And I think that's really cool.
One thing that I think is really interesting about this style of Warrior is when you've looked at how Warrior competes with the aggressive decks of the past, you're either like value trading them, like what you see Kasai doing a lot nowadays, or like, when Hatchet Story had her breakout, you're doing a lot of these, all right, I'm playing for points, I'm playing for value, I'm grinding you out. You're not really racing. The only deck that kind of did that was Dawnblade Dory. Like in some matchups, you're like, okay, they're going to say no blocks, I'm going to race. I think one thing with Fang in particular that seems really potent is that his hero ability is not like a once per turn. It's not like the first time you do this. Whenever you hit a marked hero, you get your token, right? So if you play a really aggressive matchup like you're racing, it kind of gives you this whole new aspect to how Warrior might play in some of these matchups where, okay, I can build up a lot of these tokens really fast, and then I can exploit the fact that I can turn a lot of these non-Draconic cards into Draconic, whether it's for synergy, for chain links, for a number of Draconic cards played. Because fealty works on any card you play, you can make reactions Draconic, like Colin, you were talking about how Blood of the Dry. There's not exactly a lot of 1 cost, but like, what if you're just playing great A+ value, Warrior reactions that cost 1? Like, think Blade Runner. Your Blade Runner could cost 0 because you could make it Draconic. It's the card you play, right? So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do. I'm curious to see how people build around that, because I think the Fang's hero text in that resource base of those tokens is going to be really critical to whether he's successful or not in CC.
I'm really curious as well, Alex, since you mentioned the fact that Fang's first line of text is not once per turn. The curious thing about it, though, is the mark goes away once an opponent hits you. And I think it's controlled by the defending player, essentially. So, like, I'm imagining an instance where you come in with Obsidian Firevein. You do the attack reaction that marks on hit. I'm pretty sure... Yeah. Long Whisker loyalty. So who gets to choose the priority of those triggers? And I would have to imagine that the opponent gets to choose for Long Whisker royalty's effect to go, and then the mark goes away, right? Or do you think you get multiple marked tokens?
So I think the turn player will choose them. Like, you're assuming they're already marked when you play Long Whisker royalty.
Correct.
That's what you're talking about?
And then the dagger hits.
So let's...
Let me pull up Long Whisker royalty.
Yeah,
because they're both on hits. So like when you hit, if they're already marked, then your reward of the fealty token goes on the stack, and then Long Whisker loyalty says the next time it hits, mark them. So both triggers are controlled by you. One is Long Whisker and one is Fang's hero text. So you'll just say, all right, I'm going to resolve Fang's hero text first, get my reward. You are no longer marked, and then now that my dagger has hit you, Long Whisker will mark you. So it definitely works.
Yeah, and I think the context I'm talking about though is hitting a marked hero multiple times in a turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if I'm already attacking a hero that is marked, and I hit them with Long Whisker royalty, would I be able to refresh that marked token? and then potentially hit them again and create another fealty off of Fang.
I think you should be able to. It doesn't say it's limited to once per turn.
I'm curious if you could just have as many marked tokens on you as you want, or if it's just I am marked.
It's probably binary. You probably are either marked.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Marked.
That's the way I've read it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I think so far with what we've seen, marking does seem to be not necessarily an easy thing to do, or at least from the cards I've seen, the assassin cards seem to be more easily able to mark heroes. But if you're able to play like a base of 15 cards that can mark, like with some kind of condition, or think like reacts, like mark the target hero and this attack gains go again, or something like that, or a reaction or that does something. It will be interesting because you are right. If they don't have a lot of ways to mark a hero, then perhaps it doesn't even matter because it's not feasible to mark a hero more than once or twice a turn.
Because since we're on the subject, we've got Long Whisker Loyalty. I keep wanting to say Royalty. Then we have that can't be it. Sworn Vengeance. Yeah, we have Sworn Vengeance, which is action speed, which is why I have it both in the red and the blue here. Because I figure that the ability to mark is going to be really important, especially in the early stages of the game, so that you can get the second line of text online as humanly possible. There is one thing I want to clear up before we continue the discussion. Zachary Wallach's in chat, and he is talking about how this card discounts Fang's daggers. It doesn't, Zach. It discounts its own cost. I just want to clear that up. What it does for the daggers is it buffs their power, and it makes it so you can swing additional times this turn. So all it's doing is reducing the cost of the card itself based on the number of draconic chain links you control. Because, that would be really redundant if it also reduced the cost of the daggers. Having a -1 cost dagger doesn't really help us at all.
Now, I actually was looking through the cards we've seen so far, and one card that I think probably synergizes extremely well with this is Sharpened Senses. So it's, I'm not sure if you have it in your maybe pile or not, but it says that your weapon attacks gain +1. If their power is greater than twice their base, they gain go again. And then it's an aura, so at the beginning of your end phase, destroy this. So what I'm thinking is like, okay, here's a really easy 2-card combo. You break one of your tokens, you make your Sharpened Senses Draconic, because it's not. It's got go again. Okay, 1 Draconic card, right? Or does it say Chain Link or Turn on some of these cards?
Chain link.
Okay, so it would close. So I guess it wouldn't count as Draconic. But you could still make it, so maybe you don't make it Draconic, but that solves the problem of, well, how do I gain the action points? Like, you're not going to be able to react every time to swing your sword 6 times. But, if you're playing the Draconic Daggers, they're going to be double their base power if their base power is 1, because the reaction doubles it on its own.
It has to be...
And then...
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. The Fire and Brimstone.
Yeah.
So like this plus Blade Flurry is like, that makes them greater than twice their base. That means that it turns on both go agains, and you get a +1 if you want to use a fealty. Like, it does seem interesting that kind of the plays you can make once you have extra fealty, because Fang cares about 3. Any less doesn't matter, any more doesn't matter. So I think we're definitely going to get to, like, you might get to game states where you play out a bunch of your marked cards. You maybe play, I don't know, there's a bunch of extras like Exposed and some of these other cards that just are like, if I need more marking, I can do more marking. And then once you get like 5 or 6 of these things, you might just fire off. Yeah, I'd like all 3 of these cards to be Draconic, and enable some of these synergies that like just make it so efficient on. For like every single card, because Blade Flurry plus Obsidian Fire Vein plus Quicksilver Dagger, like on its own, is what is that? 7 points of value on 1 card.
It's crazy.
Plus Dynamo, assuming you're running that.
You better believe it. It's in my main board, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Anthony Phams in chat. He says Spike Pit Trap, but we all knew he would say that. He probably says Buzzsaw Trap as well. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
And that brings me to that brings me to again why I have Quicksilver Dagger included in here, because it's important to note that once one of your daggers have been given go again, Quicksilver Dagger and Obsidian Fire Vein are almost identical. It's just if you have extra draconic cards that like the only way you are rewarded for having 2 fire veins is if you have additional draconic reactions, essentially. And I personally think that just being able to play, for example, some draconic card, Obsidian Fire Vein, Fire and Brimstone, and then that's all you need for the rest of the turn, right? Because once Fire Vein has been given Go Again, you can swing the dagger twice because it has Go Again, because one of your other weapons have been given Go Again. You can swing twice with it because of Fire and Brimstone. And then you follow it up at the very end of the chain with Obsidian Fire Vein again. So just highlighting again why I think this is going to be the choice of weapons for Fang.
Yeah, dagger definitely makes it really easy to play around.
Something maybe this build might be, or builds in general in the future might be overlooking, is that the like for the Jukai, the for the Emperor, and the other for the you can almost threaten like a double dip on fealty tokens. Is something that everyone's kind of overlooking, where it's like they're already marked, you're just creating a fealty token just on attacking them. And you're like, oh, and you, by the way, if you hit this, now I have 2 fealty tokens. So if you're just like super greeting out with like a big red line deck, or you've got like Blood of the Drakai, and you're like, here's my dagger, Blade Fury dagger, and then oh, here's my like 2 for 6 Ender, by the way. That's also creating me a fealty token.
Right.
If I marked you previously in the turn, that I can get a second fealty token. So I think I think maybe a higher count of all, like, maybe just run all 9 for the Drakai Emperor cards is
I could see that.
Play.
Yeah. And again, because it's about attacking marked heroes, like the only reason I didn't include the other ones, I think I have them in maybe, it's for the Emperor and for the Realm. For the Emperor is the 1 cost, for the Realm is the 2 cost, was because I didn't feel confident with the number of marking things I have. Because again, like we have Sworn Vengeance, which is great, but it requires the weapon to hit. Long Whisker Royalty also requires it to hit, but has a little bit more inevitability being a reaction. But I could totally see that being a thing, because not only we keep talking about Fang needing 3 of those fealty tokens, but there's definitely ways he can make use of extra ones, like we've been talking about. So it's kind of like the Kasai thing, where you're questing for copper and gold. But in this case, it's like you hit your maximum number, you're stable there, and then you'll totally have uses for the other ones, right? Because Blade Flurry becoming Draconic helps you out with your Obsidian Fire Vein, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, just like if we're like starting the turn and you're like, okay, I have like 4 or even 5 fealty tokens going into like a turn because you generated a bunch on the previous turn. You're like, okay, I'm gonna start with my dagger attack or my Obsidian Fire Drain, break my fealty token, play Blade Fury, and suddenly your turn is just like insane, just like off of like 1 card.
Yeah,
you don't even have to like have any other cards. You're just like, yeah, here's dagger, Blade Fury, dagger.
What do we think about the inclusion of these Rupture cards? Fire and Brimstone made me really think that hitting Rupture text could be possible. Granted, it's a legendary card though, so maybe it's not as feasible as I was originally thinking. I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I mean, it's not bad. Like I'm glancing at some of the Draconic cards, and like because you swing 2 daggers, that's already 2 chain links. It's just like 1 card is enough to immediately just make it so that you're at 4. Like that's it. Just like attack, blaze headlong into any sort of Rupture effect is really cool. And like for a class that I think can sometimes lack in disruption, like a warrior just in general doesn't have too many like too many on hits or too many things that are like really force them to block. Just sending a breaking point, 1 for 5, destroy your arsenal, is I think going to be like a really potent tool, and something that I think with the right type of build could absolutely be achievable.
Yeah, one thing I'm starting to realize too, looking at a lot of these cards, is it's maybe not, unreasonable to think that you could build some kind of like mini combo Fang deck here. Like there's a lot of auras or things you can carry forward into a turn that do certain things for you. Like I'm looking at agility stance. So like, this is very similar to the Majestic Sharpened Senses, right? Except you just don't get the +1, but like all your dagger attacks get go again, right? Imagine you carry into the start of one of your turns. You have like a flurry stance that pops. You have an agility stance that pops. You play this spec. Maybe you've got, long whisker loyalty. Like, it's not unreasonable to think you could just like dagger somebody like 10 times in a turn or something. If it lines up. Your daggers are going to be free, right? So really the only limiting factor, assuming that your daggers are going to be free, is the action points, right? And there are at least 6 cards that we see so far that automatically fix that problem. And you don't even need to have it on the turn. You just carry it into that turn. So you talk about rupture cards. One card that might actually be really powerful in this deck is Salt the Wounds, right? Like, you think of what a lot of the ninja decks were doing. Imagine you go like, I hit you with dagger for 2 10 times. Also, hey, it's 2, so you feel really bad blocking now. It's 3 or whatever, right? And then at the end, I'm like, cool, you took like 7, 8 dagger hits, like hair salt for 10.
Sure it's ninja. Darn.
Oh, it's not generic.
I was cooking with you too.
That'd be really good.
But I mean, to lean into like the minute combo idea, right? Like, we just got, I think either yesterday or maybe the day before, we got like the Imperial Seal command.
Yep.
Which is it's just like a generic item. If you're royal, the opponent just loses all cards in arsenal, but for like the whole turn you break it and they can't play any D-reacts. I mean,
it's pretty gross.
I think shout outs to Anthony and chat who's bringing this idea into my head. If you're playing against like a super heavy mid-range Riptide list and you're like, okay, I have my big combo turn. I don't want you to ruin my combo turn. You just break the Imperial Seal and now the Riptide player cries. But it doesn't apply just to Riptide, because I think a lot of decks are going to be staring at like cards like that all you got, right? Like, that card has to be good into like all these dagger heroes are just showing up, and if Fang's going to be swinging daggers all the time, and maybe they're not going to be greater than 2 base all the time, you're just like, free card draw, free block 3, draw card.
So
yeah. And I think that there's definitely a package there with there's a card called Oath of Steel. It says whenever you attack, put a counter on it, and then at the end of turn you remove them all. But if you're attacking with a dagger multiple times, it gets a +1, and then it gets a +2, and then it gets a +3. And there absolutely are cards in Warrior that allow you to swing a bunch of times. There's a 1-for-3 called Dusk Path Pilgrimage.
Oh my gosh, from Monarch, right?
Which
we're going deep.
Oh man,
we're going deep. Actually, I think it's Welcome to actually no, it might be
It is
Monarch.
Monarch,
The other Pilgrimage, I think.
Nature's Path is Welcome to Actually, I wonder if Nature's Path. Nah, okay. Anyway, I'm doing a lot of speculating here.
Yeah, Colin knows Warrior cards, that's for sure.
Yeah, like just swing additional times. If you could set this up, one Fire and Brimstone, this, and you're going to be cooking with gas here. So I don't know. I'm excited. I tried to do some things like that with Kasai, and it definitely felt like you kind of just were really set on like capping out at 2. But now that we have all the stances, we have so much that says, well, it's just a dagger, so of course you can attack additional times, you can and I think that we could do some shenanigans here.
Colin, I'm curious.
Excited.
Sorry to interrupt you, Alex. I'm curious about Colin's thought about the equipment suite being the Warrior expert in the room. Do you think this is the loadout, or are there other considerations based on what we've seen so far?
I mean, I like it. I really like Rains of Bloodspill.
I'm curious about Braveforge Bracers specifically, namely because you're a huge proponent of Ironsong Versus in Kasai.
I am. Okay, so Braveforge Bracers and Ironsong Versus, they're kind of similar. Both of them are going to be +1. I think the biggest issue I'm seeing with the current like Warrior Arm suite is that you have to break the chain, right? And that is something that Draconic characters don't tend to want to do. So there's a chance that because you can activate Versus like before you start attacking, you may want to do that, then start the Draconic chain links.
That makes a lot of sense.
But
doesn't Versus only work with swords though?
It may. Oh no, it is.
Does it really?
Oh, so it doesn't work on daggers.
No, weapon. It's weapon. Get out of here.
No.
Oh, it's sword.
Braveforge is weapon.
Versus.
Braveforge is weapon.
Versus.
Oh, Versus is only sword.
Only with sword.
Yeah.
Versus is any weapon. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
hey,
man.
that brings up an argument of, well, maybe instead of running daggers specifically, we could run swords, like Centauri Saber plus the Go Again sword, if they block an attack action sword.
Aren't you stabbing yourself in the gut? Because Fang's whole text box is about daggers.
I mean, look, man.
Yeah.
We're playing Draconic here, and we like swinging swords. Like,
All right.
it's not necessarily out of the...
Hey, we can try. I mean,
Yeah.
I've played Kasai with
Like,
axes.
There
I don't
is
know.
a world where you could build a Fang deck where you care about just making all your stuff, like all these cards that refer to other cards being Draconic. You just ignore that, like the bottom part where your daggers are free, and you're just like, I'm just gonna make fealty tokens and make all these cards Draconic.
Maybe. Yeah, there is also Gallantry Gold. If you were to really do
Ooh.
the combo, as I think this guy Smiley SSD says in chat. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Like,
a good point.
If we're doing combo
That's a really good point. I missed that.
Oh my gosh.
And that could be that could be a fun time.
Dude, 10 chain links of dagger, and now we got Stubby's back. Let's go.
Yep.
Like, that's pretty good. That is pretty good.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
That is leaning into the whole, yeah, we're playing like one OTK turn, and we're killing you on that turn. And
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it.
And
And
once-
Royal Seal you, nice
Yep.
D-Rex, bud.
Once we
And
find this card right here, it's all over.
I know.
Yeah.
There's also some of the bigger attack reacts that usually we haven't really played because a lot of times they were a little awkward when you're just swinging once or twice. But like Biting Blade says, creating like weapons you control get +1 for the rest of the turn. They do stuff like Commanding Performance, which is until end of turn. Like I think a lot of this could be a nice way to set this up. Maybe even something like some of the agility package, so that you start off with one of your just base Draconic attacks. And that way
yes, of
you have
course.
Go Again with it. You attack with 2 daggers, and now you have Rupture online.
I mean, without a doubt, it's got to be Take It on the Chin, right? I mean, that's
Take It
got
on
to
the
make the deck
Chin.
for that reason.
Goblet of Blood Run Wine.
Mm-hmm. And then, God forbid, you start off with where did it go? The one of the 4 those, and your opponent is already marked.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
No,
This is what I like about all the warriors is like, you get into them and they have such a wide pool. They've been here since Welcome to Wraith, but at the same time, none of them are like the busted way to do this. There's so many options, and this is interesting. We could cook in a number of different ways. We've talked OTK, we've talked aggro.
Zachary Wallach's in chat asking for Decimator Great Axe Fang. Do we think that's viable?
Everybody wants to fatigue.
I think the best version of that deck is just Dory. Like, it just is.
Yeah.
Because Refraction
No,
Bolters to end the game, basically. Yeah.
I think the two kind of emerging initial thoughts on how you could deck build this deck are like, it's very similar to Redline Dromai. You just play really aggressive, really efficient cards. You play mostly reds. You exploit a lot of cards. Maybe you're playing, tomes using Blood of the Drakai to get some 1-cost sprinkled in there. It also means you can abuse that 0-for-4 Go Again card where you can only play Draconic cards that chain link.
Yep.
Maybe you play some more blues so that you can do that kind of combo, and maybe 2-3 times a game you throw 10 dagger hits at them. And of course you can only fire in Brimstone one of those, but I would compare it to Acilio. It's like, well, okay, you have this like one really strong turn that's a lot stronger than the other ones, but then if your other turns can be powerful as well, you're still getting those points in that.
And then unlike Acilio, every single card in his deck blocks for 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, I noticed that about this set so far. The block value seems to be pretty high. Like, there's some instants, and the instants don't block, but we've seen a lot of 3 blocks. There's a couple 2 blocks sprinkled in, but it does seem like the block value of this set is going to be pretty high and defensive. So maybe keep that in mind for limited or, the Prague pre-releases, all the good stuff.
I want to talk about this card real quick before we go. Uprising, which did not make a big splash when it actually came out in the Uprising set. Do we think Fang might be the use case for it? I mean, certainly Syndra perhaps, but
you would have to take out the Quicksilver Dagger probably, and run 2 of the Draconic daggers.
Because you're making other attacks Draconic as well.
Right.
Yeah, it's true. But is there a way to make the Quicksilver Dagger draconic?
Not that we've seen so far.
I think
You have to play the card, so not activating a weapon. Look, all I have to say is, imagine a CNC for 7. We know what it looks like. If your CNC is draconic, now it's 7. I mean, I don't know. 0 for 4, block 3, red card is probably just always good, let's be honest. And then there's some maybe niche things you can do about turning cards that shouldn't be draconic into draconic, and then giving yourself breakpoints on some really nasty things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think part of the issue with this in the past was like it really only kind of worked in like Fi if you could run it, because he was the only one ever really going that far, and all of his cards that were breakpoints were already breakpoints because they're all 1-for-4s that you cared about having on hits. But having the ability to like CNC for 7 or add the extra 1 could be worthwhile if you have like the combo turn where you're like Fire and Brimstone, you have an Uprising on top of it, and then suddenly your daggers are like 4s, and you're like you're starting to really cook, and you're at minimum probably just leaking damage. Maybe this is playable, maybe it's not.
Maybe, yeah. I think it's tough with Quicksilver Dagger, but like the more we want to be on the aggressive, and the more we want to have these turns that have like such good offensive overlaps, it makes this not bad. If you like even just 0 for 3, 0 for 4, if you're ending on Rupture, all that's draconic.
Exactly. And if we're hitting one of our sources of attack twice with a dagger, we've already got 2 of these covered, even if we're only running 1 of the draconic daggers.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff here. I do wonder if builds are going to be a little bit Ira-like in some way, with like even bigger than that and like kind of that sort of thing. Which maybe it kind of depends on how attack focused there are. However, I think the one issue I'm running into, unless we really dive into like every generic card that could be draconic, is that there aren't too many like base draconic cards. There's like what is it, the 0 for 4 Blaze Headlong, and then
it's like all the Rupture
others
cards. It's like all the Rupture cards.
Right, yeah, but like getting that third chain link after you swung with 2 daggers, but before you want to Rupture, we need like a piece there, and it seems like to me maybe that's going to be closer to maybe a generic card that we make draconic to try to set that up. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like we want to play 3 cost attack. It feels like it's gonna be an Easter egg. It's gonna be a snatch that we can start off with.
Well, I think one thing that maybe is missing a bit from the deck is I think there could be more 0 for 4 draconic attacks, because you do need to play a draconic card every turn to keep your fealties around, and so if you're forced into a position where you're blocking a lot, and so you can't necessarily keep a pitch card and keep a reaction card if you just have the Blaze Headlong or the new one, the 0 for 4 Go Again 3 block that says you can only play draconic cards this turn. I think that's a great one to have, because you just block 9, swing a 0 for 4, keep your fealties around. So I do like having a good mix of attack actions so you can make sure you don't lose them if it turns out that having fealties and turning on your hero ability is actually like really important for the deck.
I'm glad you mentioned it, Evan, because when I was putting this deck together, like the first thing I did was just navigate over to Draconic and smash in everything that I thought would be useful in terms of attacks, right? There really aren't that many unless you are willing to mix Phoenix Flames into your deck, and I'm just not I'm not convinced yet.
Some Phoenix Flames package where you're like super aggro red line, and then you're like, we're gonna put some Phoenix Flames in, we're gonna put in Flame Call Awakenings, and then we have Stoke the Flames where you can just like bounce a Phoenix Flame through your hand, and that has Go Again, so that could be your like third chain link.
I think
if you're doing that, then Burn Away is pretty hype.
Burn Away is good too, yeah, for that exact same reason.
Which, if we're mixing in Phoenix Flames, like that would be the most enticing reason to play Uprising, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very curious. I could definitely see a Fang that is like all in on Uprising, Phoenix Flame, and Rupture.
Just literally redline Dromai, except warrior focus, right?
Yeah.
Instead of carrying value with your Ash Wings, you're carrying value by exploiting the Draconic cards or the warrior pool, right? I mean, there's a lot of strong warrior cards you can splash. So I think those are probably the two ways that I would start deck building, either like a redline Fang or some kind of like weapon mini combo, right? Where you're like, okay, I want a couple of these really insane. I swing the weapon 10 plus times. So.
Bryce, do you have Drop of Dragon's Blood in your list, or is it sideboard?
It's currently in the maybe board. What do we think about this card?
I think it's pretty solid because, like, it's a Draconic instant, which means you can play it as during the reaction step during the weapon swing. So if you're running 2 of the Draconic weapons, then it's a the Obsidian Fire Vein, then it's a pseudo reaction. You swing the first dagger, play a real reaction, and then you swing the other one, and you play this. You gain a resource, draw a card, give it a go again. So that can like be the resource you need to play your last finisher, get an arsenal card, something. I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
With tomes being banned, this is basically one of the best tomes you can probably register in a deck. So,
speaking running Tome of Imperial Flame.
Yeah, what do we think about that? I mean, obviously, it's like it's not like Dromai where you actually benefit from pitching red cards. I think you would really have to be all in on red line in order for this to be in your deck. Like, I mean, the use case for Dromai was like you're creating Ash, but also anytime you see this card, Tome of Imperial Flame, you are doing 2 things. You're fixing your hand, and Tome of Imperial Flame is a blue instead of a red because you pitch those 2 red cards and then you activate Furnace, and then you have a blue to fuel your turn. I could see the second part of that being super useful for Fang, but I don't know if it's worth the liability of having non-blocks in your deck personally. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I think it just leans super heavy into we're going to run like a Phoenix Flame package. We're not blocking. We are going off to the races, and we are seeing who dies first. Is what running like Tome of Imperial Flame, which means you have to run Furnace. And like most of your blind like drops to like 2s at like highest with a lot of those cards. So
I think like once your hero ability is turned on and your daggers are free, then I think the red line idea becomes a lot better. But if you're redline from the start and trying to get all 3 fealties, then it's kind of tricky. You don't have any pitching red synergy really unless you run Furnace, and like you do need to be royal for it to be good. So you're running the gold, which is
you don't even have to because you're actually royal. You are royalty.
All right, then you don't have to do that.
Honestly, if he wasn't royal, I don't think that card would even be in consideration.
No, it would not.
No,
I wonder.
I mean,
go ahead, Colin.
I mean, like card selection historically is like always been kind of okay. You know what I mean? Like especially if you're more redline, the other way that you can kind of filter hands has been blocking a lot of the times. Like if you have a 4-card hand, 2 cards don't really do much, but you can block 6 with them. That's kind of all right. But yeah, if you are going to be redline, a way to be like, man, these 2/2 blocks are not really doing it. I already have the go again. I already have the Draconic like attack reaction. I need like another attack to start off with. I think this could be nice as like a way to kind of look through your deck and to find the pieces. Because Warrior has had issues with like too many pieces at once. Where like, okay, if you're doing playing Kasai, for example, I don't know why we would mention Kasai, but let's say if we did, you want to go again, and you want the buffs, and you want, and maybe you even try some attack actions in there, and now you have a lot of different types of cards that you want at any given turn. And I think if Fang is like that, where he wants the Draconic attack reactions or instants, he wants the attack cards, and he wants maybe a Rupture card, like that's a decent number of pieces, and you're not going to get that every hand naturally, especially since I don't think this is like a second cycle type of guy, something, unless you're super combo focused.
No, he's a stabby kind of guy for sure.
Yeah. And so I think card selection could be all right, but you have to lean into it. You have to be playing Furnace. You have to be redline, or else it's going to make you pitch things.
It makes a lot of sense, but it's also like, it's so hard for me to imagine a warrior that can put a turn together without a blue consistently. You know what I mean? And I feel like you are kind of accepting that as your fate if you run those tomes.
A little bit, yeah.
You probably price yourself into Furnace is what I'm imagining, right? I mean, but I'm not sure if there's enough pieces to pull it off, but it is tempting. Like there's a lot of, okay, you gain a resource here with Tome plus hand fixing. You could exploit it with Blood of Drakai. The other legendary, what was it, Dragon's Blood, right? That one does the same thing. I mean, I could see a lot of turns where maybe you only need one resource or one kind of cost reduction, or maybe, Tome just fuels your entire turn. So it is interesting. I'm not sure what that red line list looks like, what red generics you probably splash in to make it work. Or if like the Gallantry Gold combo thing seems really appealing too.
That's honestly, like, if I'm building Fang tomorrow, that's what I'm going for. But that's the aggro heart that beats loud and clear in my chest.
I can't think of a better arm piece really. Like, I mean, Brave Forge Bracers does block 3 to Gallantry Gold's 1, and maybe sometimes you'll get a little value off of it, but I don't know. Like all the Majestics so far, and a lot of the rares have been pushing like, all right, you're going to be doing cool stuff with daggers. So I think it's going to end up being a very dagger focused build, and then end with a solid finisher.
Well, boys, we've been at this for about an hour. I think we've talked it to death. Although I think with the 5 of us in a room, we could at least go another 2. But we'll spare the good folks at home. In case you didn't see it when we revealed it originally, or when we kind of flashed it on the screen every now and then, our spoiler card at Arcane Games and Events is this: Fire and Brimstone. It's a legendary card. You can only have 1 in a constructed deck. It's red, costs 2. Blocks for 3. It's a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. It costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chain Link you control. And daggers you control get +1, and you may attack with each of them an additional time this turn. We've already likened it to 4 modes on Blood on Our Hands. But why don't you go ahead and let us know what you think in the comments, and go ahead and brew up whatever you think is going to be the best style of Fang. Gentlemen, I think we've gone long enough. I'm going to let you all go to bed. Thank you, Evan Bridges, Alexander Vore, Colin Erickson, and Joshua Rath for joining me here for a very special card reveal from Arcane Games and Events. And please buy your tickets for the upcoming AGE Opens, both on the West and East Coast, if you happen to be in the area. And look out for more awesome content coming out from us week by week here at Team AGE. Without much else, everybody have a great evening, and we will talk to you later. Good night.